Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your sorceress stabbing, monster slaying hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today we each tackle a different series again. John will return to the fantastical continent of Kiesaruhima to review the continuing adventures of one Sorcerous Stabber Orphen in the light novel adaptation by the same name second season, Battle of Kimluck. And after that, I will take a stab at the mysterious world of Kemono by joining the gang from the Inugami Strangeness Consultancy Office to solve a bunch of uncanny and grisly literal Monster of the Week cases in Kemono Jihen. So get your magic spells ready, don't look under your bed, and most definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back.
So we're back. Who knew that this light novel from 25 years ago would still be going strong today? With a decent adaptation, I would say.
Mm-hmm. They just didn't seem to dislike it when we talked about the first season.
No, I mean, after watching the original and how meandering and long it was, Jesus, and how completely unnecessary Orphan Revenge was, seriously, don't watch it. Don't waste your time. It was nice for the show to be like, hey, we're going to do things quickly, but not like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood where we just go way too fast in the beginning quickly. We're going to, still break it down for you for the people who already know this story, but, we're still going to get the details in there that you need to know, which is good. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. There's another show that I've been watching for a while now. I think you might have dropped it, but it's also an adaptation of an older show that I don't think I'll do a full review of, but I'll at least give it a nod when it eventually ends. Might as well just say it's the retelling of Dragon Quest Dai's Adventure, where it has gone at a faster pace, but it still kept all of the necessary plot beats, which, again, I appreciate y'all not wasting my time.
Yes, we only got so much time in the day to watch anime, so it's nice if the stories keep a brisk pace without letting anything important fall by the wayside. And I think Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood did when it recapped some of the stuff. Or let's say it got all the plot beats, but it didn't let some of the moments that needed some more time on the stove simmer long enough. Like, the death of Hughes, for example. That came about way too quickly. It didn't have as much impact because you didn't spend much time with him beforehand. Or at least not as much time as in the old adaptation. So, didn't have as much of an impact. And, I like it when a show knows what is important, puts a focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a nice to have. Kind of like, there are certain shows in the past that have gotten, like, movie compilations or like movie versions. Of course, the big daddy of them is like the original Gundam series and Zeta and whatnot getting their movie trilogies. But something a little more contemporary that I think I mentioned before is the Lyrical Nanoha movies. Those movies are long. They're like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But they get in there and tell you everything you need to know. And, it's more convenient if you want to get caught up than sitting down and watching 13 episodes.
Did you also watch the TV series?
Yes.
Okay, so do you get at some point the feeling in the movies that you're like, okay, I feel like I'm missing an important character beat here or something like that? Or was it like, no, this is everything I need and all the emotional parts resonate well and stuff like that? Because I watched the movie trilogy for the original Gundam show because I wanted to watch Unicorn and I was like, okay, I guess I need some Universal Century basics. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch the original Gundam movies and then I'm going to watch Char's Counter Attack and I hope that will be enough. kind of wasn't, because I should have watched something from Zeta and Double Zeta, I guess. But because there's some characters from that in Just Counterattack. But still, when I watched the original movie trilogy of Gundam, some of the scenes felt a bit disjointed, and it felt like we jumped too quickly between certain places and parts of the story, where it's like, okay, how did we get here? And some scenes were cut too quickly and stuff like that. So did you ever get the feeling in the Nanoha movies that is the case, or?
Absolutely not.
Oh, nice.
What they did cut was unnecessary fluff.
Okay.
Which was
That's the ideal.
Nice. I appreciate that. There's this really weird, honestly kind of uncomfortable hot springs episode in the first series. It's like, this didn't need to be here. And it's gone in the movie. It's like, just like, good.
You mean like most hot spring episodes in anime? Although that's not true, actually. We got in recent years, we got some TV series that did some really neat character work in their respective hot spring episodes, all the while also showing some naked flesh and stuff like that. So
that's true. But yes, all of this boils down to last year's adaptation of Orphen was really good. You know, again, brisk pace. It kept you going with things that you absolutely needed to know. And then it went a little bit beyond that when Orphen and company make their trek back to the Tower of Fangs, and one of the other sorcery instructors, War, decides, hey, so Child Man's class can fucking go.
I forgot about that name.
Yes, you did. You forgot the name Child Man Powderfield.
Oh my god. Oh boy. How could I? I feel ashamed.
And there's a meaning behind that name, which is fucking blows my mind.
Okay.
Anyway. So the first series ends with this big confrontation between the Child Man class and the War class, and eventually being like, hey, y'all don't fuck with us, we won't fuck with you. But you know, that means Orphen and his friends really can't stick around. So the wayward journey continues. And that's where the first season sort of ends off in a sort of a nutshell. There's this element with these killing dolls. They're just like these living mannequins that, are out for blood, and they're being controlled by the War class and whatnot. And as it turns out, there was an OVA episode in between the previous season and this one, kind of mandatory viewing.
Okay.
Thankfully, Funimation was kind enough to pick up the slack on that.
You mean they just released it in between?
Yeah, they released it like maybe... God, I don't know what the Blu-ray release was in Japan, but it came out 2 or 3 months afterward, and they posted on Funimation now. It's like, oh, cool. So I can sit down and watch this before I watch the new season. It's this OVA called Celestial Artifacts, and what it is it sets up a bit of the backstory between Azali, who was Orphen's childhood friend, and Child Man. There's that name again for you. And it sort of fills out how they got to know each other, their journey to find the sort of Baldanders. Apparently the translation has changed on the name from Baltanders to Baldanders, by the way. Weird. Yeah. And after that, it is sort of all leads into Orphen, Magic, and Cleo leaving on their journey to go to the holy city of Kimluck. So it's this good bridge between the two series that, you know, it fills in some backstory and it gives you the what you need to know before. It's like the episode 0 to season 2 more than it is the episode like 13, the episode 14 of season 1.
So I guess how many episodes does season 2 have?
Season 2 has 11.
It's weird to me. So why didn't they just make it 12 episodes and put it as episode 1 in that season instead of having this bridge OVA in there?
Bro, if I had all the answers.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think there are other shows who did that. I think Nanatsu no Taizai 7 Deadly Sins had between the first and second season, or was it between the second and third? They had this weird intersplice season that had just a subtitle name and was
Wasn't that like Signs of the
Signs of the Holy War,
something?
yeah, but it wasn't really the second season, which is a precursor to that or something like, yeah. So there have been cases like this. It's just always like, okay, why, why did this? Okay, sure, do your thing, but I don't understand. But
Yes.
as long as it works out, it's just I'm worried for people who are not aware of this and then maybe miss out on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the first season ended, there were talks of an OVA, and I was like, well, all right, I guess so. And then going back several months later, I think it was just as the second season was starting, I went on there, and there was an episode on Funimation Now that was marked as unwatched. I was like, wait a second, 14 episodes? And I did some research, and I was like, oh, this is the OVA. So I sat down and watched it. I was like, okay, now I can watch the second season. Now it all makes sense to go forward.
There was another series recently where that happened. I don't remember which one though. I think there was something where it's like, oh yeah, here's a special episode. It was the Haikyuu OVAs, but those are not mandatory watch things. It's like they're nice extensions on some of the characters, but they're not like, okay, we definitely need to have this. But it feels like that Orphan OVA is definitely something to you need to understand how some of the characters got from point A to point B.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It gives you insight on Azalee's motivations. It is what it's mostly there for.
Oh, okay.
The part where Orphan and company set out is sort of like, well, here's the last 2 minutes of the episode. The second season's starting. Go watch it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So the second season is something like this. So it's only been a short time since Orphan, Azalee, and the others have had their encounter with the war class and brought order back to the Tower of Fangs. As Orphan and Azalee go their separate ways, Orphan learns of Azalee's true intent to inherit the will of their teacher, Child Man. What follows is a trek toward the holy city of Kimluck, where Orphan, Cleo, and Magic run afoul of the church's elite guard, the Death Instructors, who don't take kindly to sorcerers, particularly those associated with the Tower of Fangs. The truth of Childman's past and what lies at the heart of the church are waiting for Orphan to discover, but what is the truth and what could it mean? So this all starts out, now we're kind of up to speed. Orphan essentially has a chance to become a court sorcerer, but he kind of gives up on that to go after Azalee because he really doesn't want to play by the Tower of Fangs rules. You know, they already screwed him like 2 or 3 times by now, and I don't blame him. But yes, but yeah. Full spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, for both seasons, because as usual, I always want to mention this for our continued series reviews, because sometimes we get new listeners and it's like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this review, and then it's like, whoa, shit, now I know everything about the first season of that show. I mean, yeah. So just continued series review. So spoilers for both seasons of Sorcerous Stabber Orphen.
So, as Orphan and the others are heading towards Kimluck, they happen upon this old relic called the Kamisunda Theater, which is this place that's inhabited by demons, and it's kind of a generally not good place to be, where they run across this lady knight named Meidchen. And they end up getting drawn into this encounter with these demons in this night, and they find out that, hey, Mei-Chen is just trying to help out her friends in there. And when the trio enters, and when the trio, Orphan, Magic, and Cleo, is how we're going to be trying to refer to them for short to save a little bit of breath, they find these statues that belong to the angel and devil of Swedenborg.
Okay. All right.
Yes. I want to start off. Say again?
I had to think of the chef from the Muppets.
Oh, God. The Swedish chef.
Yeah.
I want to say this straight away. Yoshinobu Akita, who is Orphan's original author, has a thing about names.
I noticed.
Yes. They find out that this theater is, filled with demons. It's basically only called a theater in name. It was there once to show a famous play about this demon king, as you said. And when this king was invited to see it, after he saw it, he ordered the theater to be destroyed. And then when that didn't go so well, it became infested with demons. And yes, they find that one of the killing dolls has kind of taken up the name of Swedenborg. This what's called a Nornir doll. The trouble with Orphen is, I enjoyed the series, but boy, if you thought Index was convoluted when I talked about it, this is like an order of magnitude more convoluted.
I mean, you don't have to recount all the plot details. You can okay, here are some highlights from what happens here and there, and unless it sounds like absolute nonsense if you just pick out random scenes or stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, the theater basically helps to establish Mei Chen and her character in that she's trying to head to Kimluck for reasons, and then the journey continues, and we find out that Mei Chen may or may not be one of the death instructors as well. We don't know. Blah blah blah.
Mystery.
Yes, and this all leads to an encounter with one of the death instructors, whose name is Quo Vadis Pater. I have told CC about the name of this character previously, and it becomes important later. His name sort of becomes important later on for really stupid reasons. Quo is a very stoic person who's very much in service to the sort of kind of Pope of Kimluck, and again, part of the elite guard of the Church of Kimluck. Like I said earlier during the synopsis, Kimluck is a very anti-magic, anti-sorcery kingdom, town, city. They don't really ascribe it, what it's supposed to be. We'll call it a city, though, because why not? So Orphen and the others kind of have to sneak their way in. But when Quo and the other death instructors kind of find out, hey, maybe there's a sorcerer within the walls of the city, all hell kind of breaks loose, and as we have established, Orphen has kind of a short fuse. And his short fuse is only exacerbated by Cleo's even shorter fuse. So when Cleo starts going off, Orphen has to defend them with his sorcery, and that sort of paints a giant target on their backs.
Is the hate against magic in that city religiously motivated?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So they end up having to escape into the sewers and catacombs underneath the church, and this is where they end up having to basically sneak their way into the church. It's here where Orphen and company have an encounter with another one of the death instructors, who introduces himself as Name Only. So Akita, fucking goddamn shit. I guess it makes sense that no one in this world has like a naturally Japanese name, because Kiasaruhima is, in spite of its name, Jesus, is very much more of has a Midwest European medieval aesthetic.
There is non-Japanese names, and then they're like, hey, here's my name, it is me. It's like my name describes my character trait and who I am.
Name only.
Yeah. Childman powder cake, or whatever he was called.
Powder cake!
I don't fucking know. But yeah, there's a difference here. And, I'm not bothered by it. I just think it's hilarious. I don't know if he thinks he's funny or if he thinks he's being clever. That's a problem. I think I said that in your review of the previous season, was like getting some big Kojima vibes. And I'm never sure with Kojima and him naming things if he's thinking of himself being clever or if he thinks it's really funny what he does, naming characters Die Hardman and stuff like that. I'm never sure.
And it's not even that these names are like on the nose. I mean, only occasionally are they. You look at Kojima's and like, yes, yeah, okay, Die Hard Man. Yes, he dies every, what is it, something minutes?
I haven't played.
I still haven't played Death Stranding.
I don't know what his deal is, but I've heard some things, and I was like, yeah, okay, all right. But I've already forgotten them again, so it made sense in a way, but it was very on the nose.
Yeah, so...
I don't know if the creator of Orphen is venturing in the same vein. No idea.
I honestly don't know either.
But it's Orphen funny. I'll give him that. Be it intentional or, unintentional.
He introduces himself as name only, and I'm just sitting here like, all right. This is where Orphen's character kind of takes a turn, because up to this point, Orphen hasn't directly killed anyone, but when he is faced up against Name and he has to defend himself to the dying breath, he has to end up having to kill Name, and it's not entirely clear if it's what proportion it is, if it's Orphen's conscience or if Name puts a curse on him in death. But for a while after that point, Orphen is like, oh God, what have I done? And he sort of ends up it's suppressing his sorcery, and for fear of killing others. It's weird. It seems it could be like half of one, half of the other, because every time he tries to conjure up his sorcery for a while after that, he ends up seeing and hearing Name, and he's like, fuck, man, what have I wrought? And it's sort of this interesting moment of character growth for him, because up to this point he's been very sort of brash, very sort of devil may care about what he's done, so long as he's gotten to the result that he's wanted. He sort of had the same attitude towards Cleo and magic, but there had been signs before that of trying to change his attitude toward them, because at the end of the first season, going back to that, when he's like, I've hatched this plan, but he's eventually like, guys, I need your help. And they're like, oh, okay, you could have said so before. That's fine. We'll help you out. And he's like, wait, what? Really? Even after I've been a giant shithead? And they're like, yeah, dude, we'll help you out. No big deal.
I mean, that's nice.
Yeah, so we see the seeds of that get planted. And as we go on, we sort of see the seeds of Orphen considering, his power changing later on as well. So the Pope of the Kimluck Church, is very wise to everything that's going on inside of his cathedral now, because, shit's been popping off at this point. And he orders one of the other death instructors, Carlota, to kill Quo if necessary, because Quo has been sort of he's been wavering in his faith. Oh no. It turns out though Quo is just a stone cold killer as things go on.
Whoops.
Yeah. The crew meets up with one of the death instructors that with the singular death instructor that they had met from the first season, and he's basically being tortured by Salua. That's his name, by Salua, and he's basically being tortured by the other death instructors to tell them what they want to know. And he's like, man, fuck you guys, I'm not on your team anymore. And goes through some pretty gruesome shit, and it's not great. And it's sort of here at this point that we find out that the power that Childman has and handed down to those who came after them came from the past. There is time travel involved, and it's a little wonky, but Childman was known in his quote unquote previous life as Alfred Mines. Can you believe it? We have a regular ass name in this show.
Wow.
Wow. And he served under his mother, question mark? It's not entirely clear. This nun named Sister Esterseva. And Esterseva sends Alfred to the future in order to foster his sorcery, to help bridge the gap between humanity and what are ostensibly the Celestials. I believe I sort of talked about in the first season how they expounded upon a plot detail from the original show that any creature that can use magic, excuse me, because you don't want to cause confusion with a character of the same name, that can use sorcery can use sorcery is considered to be a dragon.
Mm-hmm. And, I remember that.
Yeah, and the different levels of sorcery, basically help establish how close to to holiness, to the Celestials you are, and there's different classes and different ranks, blah 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 blah. And Alfred was meant to be the bridge between that, and when he's sent to the future, he redubs himself Childman, as in the son of the Celestials, basically. And the Powder Field was the war where the battles between the ancient Celestials took place. So his name has meaning.
Wow.
And it's incredible because it took a while to get to this point, but to see it, have some meaning behind it. Okay, sure, all right. I'm glad there's some understanding of this now.
That seems less on the nose than I expected. I mean, it's very clear why he named himself that then. But you don't necessarily get it when you see him.
Yeah.
Only until this plot is revealed. But it's still kind of funny. You gotta admit.
Yes. What's your name, Childman? Okay, yeah. Dude.
No, Childman Powderfield.
Yes.
The last name is important too. It
is. Mm-hmm. But yes. So it turns out that in spite of the church being so anti-sorcery, that the Pope was actually kind of dead all along, and the role was taken up by one of the other killing dolls. So everybody was getting played. And it gets really weird because then during the climactic battle between Orphen and company and Quo and the Death Instructors, Carlota and Salua were definitely playing Quo for a fool because he gets fucking double, triple, quadruple crossed, and he ends up having to stand on his own for what's left of his flimsy ideals. At the core of the church is the literal goddess Aureole, and she's been there for like centuries and millennia, and there's this hand coming through this like spatial break that has been like eternally choking her.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So that's been what's holding back the wrath of the gods all this time, and she has been being held over this magical pond that's at the center bottom of this cathedral, and that's basically what's kept the gods' power in check up to this point. It's fucking weird. But in order to keep everything from going to complete shit, Azali takes the sword of Baldanders, turns herself into a spiritual form, and enters the realm of the gods in order to stop all of this from happening. And it sort of completely destroys all of the foundations that the Church of Kimluck was set on. And like I said, oh boy. It's a little weird that everything you believed in turned out to be absolutely nothing after all.
Can drive some people insane.
Yes. It's around this time when Quo reveals to Orphen and the others, what do you my name, Quo Vadis Pater. It means, where does my faith lie? Buddy, I hate to bring it to you, but your Latin is so far off. It's so far off.
I was about to say, doesn't it mean like, where are you going, father, or something like that?
Yes, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess is still kind of applicable because Quo has this, like, unshaking loyalty to the Pope, who isn't really the Pope. And when when the Pope reveals his true intent to be like, I don't care about any of you. I'm just going to let the church fall and you can all do your own thing. I don't want to say the show has this season has a messing ending, because I don't think I'm doing justice in trying to explain what happens.
It just sounds like there's a lot happening. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
It's a lot. It's a lot all at once. And I feel like it's 11 episodes. It probably could have used a couple more to let it breathe a bit, because it goes fast, but that's not to say it isn't a fun and exciting ride, because a lot of shit happens and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Not commenting on having difficulties recounting the events, did you ever get the feeling that you were lost, or were you like, okay, now this is happening, this is happening, I still get what is happening, it just moves a bit fast?
It just moved a bit fast. Like, in the moment, I was able to keep up with it. My notes are a little bit of scattershot because of it, and it's also been three-ish months since we finished watching it, so I'm trying to do the best I can to recount it to all of you. But the show was never boring to watch, because it kept me on the hook all throughout. You know, all we ever had of Orphen was the original show from 1999, and then, again, fuck Revenge. So, you know, not ever having dived into the light novels, it was nice to see something that went outside the scope of what was already known. So, I'm glad this exists. The plot is super convoluted. You know, that's what you get for, your light novel adaptations. Yoshinobu Akita's obsession with strange names continues in earnest. I'm certain of that. But you know what? It was fun to watch. It was neat to see things unfold. And at the end of this season, I don't know if there's going to be more of it. It'd be cool to see the continuation of Orphen and his wayward journey, which they do title drop at the end of the season. Thank you for that, everyone.
But I assume there's more light novel material left, right?
Oh, yeah, there's got to be, yes. Trying to do research on the light novels was surprisingly tough. There's not a lot of compiled information or substantive summaries of any of them. I guess someday I'm just gonna have to actually read them.
I mean, sure, why not?
I will say this was headed up by everybody's favorite Studio Dean.
Oh. Well, they did rather well in season 1, as you said.
Season 1 was consistent throughout. Season 2, there's some rough spots, but there's an episode and a half where they flexed a bit, and I was like, oh, they put money into it.
They can do that? They can flex?
It's weird to see. It's so weird, because Dean can do a great job when they have the time, when they have the resources, when they have the money. It's just so sad that 80% of the time we don't get to see that. But with the first 2 seasons of Konosuba, we saw that. We saw them doing great work. With the first season of Orphen and a few of the seasons and a few of the episodes of the second season, yeah, we got to see them doing really good work again. It's so easy to dunk on them. It's so easy to dunk on other studios like JC staff as well. I just want everybody to do the best that they can. And this shows that they do have the capacity to do good work. It's obvious it's a resource thing. And, not every studio has infinite money and infinite time to do the best that they can.
And infinite talent. Some studios are very good at outsourcing and pick the right people, and some studios just can't. So
Dean just doesn't always have that.
It's nice to hear, though, that they were able to do at least some of that in the second season.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I remember telling you there was an episode where I was like, oh shit, this fight was fucking dope, dude. Mm-hmm. There's this big knockdown, drag-out fight where everybody, Orphen, Cleo, Magic, Salua, Carlota, everybody gangs up on Quo, and Quo was like, oh, you're not taking me alive. And it's a sick knockdown, drag-out fight. And I want, obviously not every episode is going to be a huge fight, but I just want to see them be able to do better and more consistent. So, Dean, if anyone from Dean is out there listening to us, because I know you are, if for some reason on the off chance you're listening to this, I believe in you guys, and I just want the best for y'all.
And I mean, as long as the important tentpole fights look good, that's a good thing, which they weren't able to pull off apparently in Seven Deadly Sins season 3. That's why I didn't watch it. So.
Yeah, I remember. Was it you or someone else showed me what was supposed to be the big highlight fight from that season?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, a lot of people have been looking forward to that, but alas.
Yeah, and I mean, they're working on the next season, aren't they?
I'm not watching it anymore. It's too depressing. But yeah, I'm glad that at least some franchises, I guess, under their control, getting at least a decent treatment, with some nice standout fights.
Yeah, it's what you like to see. It's what you want to see. So, Orphen Season 2 was fun. It was maybe not the wild ride that Attack on Titan was when we talked about it last night.
It
was pretty crazy, and it was definitely an enjoyable watch. Yeah, if you feel like checking it out, it's on Funimation. Internationally, it's on Wakanim and Anime Lab, which apparently... Anime Lab services regions like Australia and New Zealand, and Funimation has kind of acquired them now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I guess that branch is known as Funimation ANZ now. So it's still waiting on the merger between Funimation and Crunchyroll to apparently happen, but the Federal Trade Commission is still not so hot on that, in spite of other big corporations owning 2 of the 4 major networks. Looking at you, mouse. But whatever will eventually come of that, Orphen is available on Funimation. I guess now what is now Funimation in some regions. I think it's a fun watch. I think it's worth checking out. It has that distinctly 90s flavor to it still, as it absolutely should. And if you're looking for something that's, an enjoyable throwback, you can't go wrong with it.
When a series of livestock bodies that rot away after a single night begin appearing in a remote mountain village, Inugami, a detective from Tokyo who specializes in the occult, is called to investigate. While working the case, he befriends a strange boy who works in the field every day instead of going to school. Shunned by his peers and nicknamed Dorotabo after a yokai that lives in the mud, he helps Inugami uncover the truth behind the killings. But supernatural forces are at work, and while Dorotabo is just a nickname, it might not be the only thing about the boy that isn't human. Unbeknownst to Dorotabo, this investigation will reveal a strange new world to him, one of beast-like entities known as Kemono existing in tandem with humans, along with breathing new purpose into his previously empty life. Alright, Kemono Jihen is based on a manga by Sho Aimoto, who also created the manga Hokenshitsu no Shinigami. And Kemono Jihen began its run December 2016, is still ongoing and counts 13 volumes at this point. The first season of the anime adaptation counts 12 episodes and was produced by Agiado Animation Works, who worked on a boatload of other stuff. Ascendance of a Bookworm, Chibi Maruko-chan, Kujibiki Unbalance, Genshiken, to only name a few. They also did Izetta the Last Witch, which we reviewed in one of our earlier episodes, Season of the Witches, and liked quite a lot, if I remember
That was
correctly.
a fun show.
Yes, it was, absolutely. Could have done with more seasons. And the animation in Kemono Jihen is pretty damn good. We got neat character designs, even though Inugami wearing sunglasses over part of his hair in the first episode looks really ridiculous.
Shut up, don't worry about it.
I don't. He only does it for one episode, but it's still like, what the fuck are you doing, man? There's like this giant strand of poofy hair over one of his eyes, and then wears the sunglasses over that. And we're like, what?
I gotta imagine it'd be uncomfortable as hell, because you'd be constantly...
Yeah. It looks so dumb. Anyway, there's the occasional very well choreographed battle scene. The series is often oozing a moody, cool, and dark atmosphere. There's a bunch of creepy imagery, including some very disgusting monster designs and a surprising amount of gore, which is important in a horror-themed show, I guess. At least if you consider that the character design itself and how those characters behave make the series often look more bright and lighthearted than it actually is. But there's also some really nice backdrops in the show and everything painted really nicely. So overall, it's a really good-looking show. We have a great orchestral soundtrack by Yuya Mori, who, according to his page on ANN, hasn't really done that much music until now. He did the soundtrack for Setokai Yakuin-domo, a Black Clover special. Oh, that show rings a bell?
Yeah, oh boy, Setokai Yakuin-domo. It is a show, in brief, a show about a boy who is enrolled in an all-girls school, and it is filled with all sorts of filthy, dirty humor.
Oh, as I would expect.
But not what you think. It's the girls who are always making the weird off-color jokes.
Ah, interesting. All right. Sounds fun.
But it is actually really fun. It's a nice twist on what you'd expect.
You got a lot of stuff, like 2 series, 2 movies, 1 OVA or something like that. There's a bunch of stuff for that.
It got a surprising amount of love.
And yeah, apparently in the soundtrack department too, because Yuya Mori did the soundtrack for that, also for a Black Clover and Dragon Ball special. But apparently he also was responsible for production advancement in Battle Spirits, was working on the 3D CG in an episode of Appare Ranman, and did some animation for Kokoku and Major Second. Either that's one of those rare jack-of-all-trades situations, or this is a mix-up, I don't know.
I mean, some people can just do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, but it's really like, what? This and this too? Okay. He made the soundtrack for Kemono Jihen, and it's great. The full orchestra score gives the whole show a feeling of drama, and at points it seems more like a movie than a TV show. It's really nice. It feels like this is production values. It's like, okay, it sounds really nice, and gives some more depth to some of the character moments, and makes it feel more whimsical in certain parts, but also more dramatic and dark in certain parts, just because of the full orchestra score. It's just really nice. But yeah, story-wise, I would say Kemono Jihen is a mix between a straightforward horror show, but also a bit slice of life, but also a bit shonen, and also a bit case of the week detective story. It's got a little bit of everything in there. If you like that stuff, and if you like that combination, maybe that piques your interest. Our main character is Dorotabo, or as we later learn, his real name is Kabane. And okay, I'm gonna spoil the first episode for you, or first 2, because it's kind of important to that character and where the story actually goes. I think it's just the first episode. But it turns out Kabane, as already alluded to in the OP, is not human. He is half human, half ghoul. Was ostensibly abandoned by his parents, and he wears this stone around his neck. It's later revealed to be a life stone by Inugami, who has a stone with certain special properties, and he probably got that from his real mom, who seems to be a Kemono, because he's a, like I said, half human, half ghoul, and I think his mom was a Kemono, and Kemono are just, in this series, monsters, basically. Are what yokai are in other series, Kemono are here. They're basically some kind of monsters that live together or in the same world as humans, but don't really reveal themselves. They mix with humans, they influence them, they interact with them, but they don't reveal themselves to them as Kemono, as monsters, and take on human forms and everything. And some of them are half human, half Kemono, like Kabane is. He's half human, half ghoul, and ghoul means he's basically undead, and he can't die, which is used a lot in this series. Because he gets dismembered a fucking lot. Kabane gets killed in so many ways. Or let's say he gets dismembered and mutilated and destroyed in so many ways that would kill a normal person, but he survives all of that shit and rebuilds his body from it, which leads to some really fucked up imagery, but also to some really funny jokes. Because sometimes, sometimes he's just a head, and his friends carry around his head. I'm like, where's his, where's his body? What is happening? A bit like in Zombieland Saga. Jokes like that. And also some pretty dramatic stuff where he just is a ball of flesh or something that is still fighting and shit like that, where it's basically just his body is burning away, his flesh is burning away, and he's still fighting shit, and some of his limbs fly off and shit like that. And it rarely, if it needs to look goofy, it looks goofy. If it needs to look really, really disgusting and bad and painful, it does. So, be prepared for that. Because the show doesn't really pull any punches when it wants to look gruesome. So yeah, it gets some really heavy horror influences, and that shows. There's a lot of scary and creepy imagery in this show, and I like that. I really appreciate that. I didn't expect that, because when I started the show, I felt like the character designs and the world and everything were really bright. And, don't get me wrong, a lot of the show is bright. But I was surprised by how dark it got occasionally. And I like that. I like that mix where it was like, it could almost give you whiplash in certain episodes, where a lot of fun stuff happening, and then there's some really creepy and grisly stuff happening later on in the episode. It was like, oh, whoa, what the fuck? But yeah, I like it when a show surprises me like that. So I liked it here as well. And yeah, turns out Kabane grew up in this village after he was abandoned by his parents, got taken in by the host of an inn, was abused by her a lot, emotionally by the children in the village as well. And that resulted in him becoming kind of this emotionless husk in a way. He's not like, let's say, evil or stuff like that. It just feels like he doesn't really know what feelings are in certain ways or how to feel about certain things. He doesn't really know how to deal with emotions welling up in him at a certain point in the show. And mostly they don't. He's really like this stone-faced guy who just tells it as it is, but really can't make sense of certain things. And he's really just like a child who needs to learn certain things. At this point, he should have learned about certain things and how to feel about certain stuff, but he just doesn't. So some of the stuff is just new to him, and he's like, what? I don't understand this, right? I don't understand what you were talking about when you're talking about certain emotions or desires or whatever. And yeah, that's part of a lot of the solid character work in the show, but also part of the jokes, because he just reacts to certain things in funny ways that you wouldn't expect, because he just doesn't understand them, and it's fun. But yeah, big part of his character arc is learning basically about emotion, learning about friendship, learning about love, learning about what is important to him, what he wants from his life and all that stuff. Basically becoming more human than he was until now, because, his foster mom and the shitty children in the village wouldn't let him be. They treated him like garbage, like a monster, like part of what he kind of is. But yeah, Inugami kind of, takes, after the first one or two episodes, takes him back under a pretense to the city, to his agency, and then puts him under his employee. And Kabane is there with a bunch of other characters and solves some cases with him. And it's cool. And yeah, there's some cool scenes later on when Kabane develops, and there's like the scene where he realizes that he might lose his friends at a certain point because they're attacked. And that lets him yell out in worry. And this is like this moment is like the first true crack in his emotionless demeanor. And then he also checks on their heartbeats when they are back at Inugami's office and follows one of the characters around like a worried pet or child. And it's kind of sweet. It's like, a boy at his age normally wouldn't do that, probably. But it's like he's so unused to feeling certain things for other characters that it's like when he's worried, he's really worried. And it's really nice. He just still has this solemn look on his face, this emotionless mask, basically. But from the things he does, you clearly understand that he's worried about his friends and he's really scared and stuff like that, and he wants to protect them. And I don't know, it's really nice. It's really, for a character that can come across a bit off-putting in certain parts, because, he just looks so, I don't know, emotionless. Those are some really nice moments that make you feel like he is going somewhere and he's learning a lot of things and he's becoming more and more human and more of a character. The other part of his story is also, learning about his parents, or even defining the wish that he wants to learn more about his parents and about his heritage and everything. Because in the beginning, he's like, well, I don't care. I don't care about anything. And Inugami gets him to the point where it's like, no, maybe you do care. And maybe because right now you don't understand what it actually means to have a family and to have that. And I want to show you that. And then maybe you actually want to learn. Maybe you want to meet your mom. Maybe she's out there and, want to learn why she abandoned you and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's all about that. And also what comes with that is learning about his powers and learning to tap into his Kemono instincts without losing control, because that is always a risk in the beginning. The Life Stone and another character's advice enable him to do that later on, but it takes a while. Kawane is a really cool guy. He's a really nice kid, and he will do anything and kill anyone for his friends. Which seems problematic at certain parts, because he really does. Like, if someone threatens his newfound family, he is ruthless. He is fucking ruthless. He doesn't give a shit. He's not like, okay, I'll have mercy on you because you're also Kemono half like me. No, he doesn't give a shit. He just downright kills every motherfucker who threatens the safety of his friends. So it's like, all right, you better not cross his way and make him angry or threaten his friends, especially. It's a bad idea. And
something you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah, There's some, yeah, exactly, pretty much. Still in control. The difference between him and the Hulk is like, he is in full control. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing it intentionally. It's like, he's very like, no, I'm gonna fucking kill the shit out of you because you're a threat to my friends, and I can't have that. It's like, okay, okay, everyone be aware of that. And he then, when he gets really angry, he needs to be calmed down by his friends and everything, and one in particular does that. There's a specific scene where one of his friends, Shiki, and we'll get to him soon, is thanking him for doing what he did, and that calms him down, even when he was very angry and wanted to kill a certain person at that moment in time. But being afforded such kindness is such a new feeling to Kabane at that point, that it always snaps him out of his Kemono blood mode, or whatever it's called, where he just gets really angry and really bloodthirsty and wants to kill. So that's cool. The show puts a lot of focus on the importance of family and friendship, even if, it's adopted family, basically, that you find yourself, and that is not bound to you by blood or anything. So, yeah, that's always a nice theme, and the show pulls that off really well. Part of the Kabane's newfound family is Inugami, who is, like I said, a private detective from Tokyo, who in the first episode comes to the countryside to investigate that case with the mutilated livestock, then stumbles over Kabane and everything. Just like Kabane, Inugami is a Kemono. He has Tanuki-esque powers, like he can conjure a gun out of thin air, for example, which seems kind of be part of his body. He maybe can do that for other things too, I don't remember. Where he's partially transforming his hand into a gun, not sure it works. I think Tanuki kind of have transforming powers in Japanese mythology and everything, so I guess that fits.
Listen, if there's one thing I know about Tanukis, it's that they can turn into statues and become completely invincible to everything around them. Wait, is that just Mario 3?
Yeah, I think so. But it works. But yeah, it seems he has transformation powers. So far, I think he has only used it to materialize a gun, but maybe he can do other stuff. I don't quite remember, because it has also been 3 months since I watched that show. But yeah.
Your power, gun.
Yeah, very good power to have, I guess. But yeah, he takes Kabane with him by pretending that he killed him, which is a nice twist. Again, happens in the first episode, so it's not much of a spoiler. And he apparently has 2 other Kemono kids as his partners, and also a bunch of secrets. But yeah, he's, the enigmatic owner of the agency, and we probably will still learn a bunch of stuff about him in the coming seasons, if there will be some. There is also like this signage over the agency's entry that attracts people that have been touched by Kemono, so that's how he gets new cases, and that's really interesting. And yeah, like I said, he has 2 other kids under his employ. There's some other characters too, but these are the other 2 main characters of the show, I would say. Shiki and Akira. Shiki is a spider Kemono, or half spider Kemono, who is annoyed by Kabane popping up in the beginning, because now he's not the only Hanyo, which is, the half Kemono. He's not the only Hanyo in the agency anymore. But he quickly comes around, because Kabane doesn't respond to his antagonizing antics, because Kabane doesn't respond to anything, really. He's just like, well, he's like emotionless, but friendly, and he's like, okay, yeah, you keep on saying that stuff to me, and you keep throwing your hissy fits at you, I don't give a shit. And Shiki's like, and yeah, he also realizes Kabane and him have a lot in common, because they don't know their parents. But while Shiki has already given up on finding his mom, at least at the beginning of the show, and has resigned himself to cynicism, Kabane is not willing to throw in the towel yet, especially after talking to Inugami at the end of the first episode and, having a turnaround on that and actually wanting to meet his mom. And the glimmer of hope that brings to Shiki's world clearly irks him, but you can see that he respects and maybe even admires Kabane for it. And it also motivates him to maybe think over some of his attitude that he has had until now. And yeah, it's pretty nice, and they form a pretty strong bond, and I liked it a lot. There's the scene later on in the show where Kawana gets hurt badly, and when recovering, Shiki lends him his jacket, when in the beginning he was very intent on telling Kawana, no, this is my stuff, you don't get to have a piece of my pizza, this show's obsessed with pizza, by the way, even more so than Ninja Turtles. But
wow.
Yeah. Shiki's just a fucking pizza fanatic, and in the beginning he's like, no, this is my stuff, this is my pizza, you don't have to any. And then he opens up to Kawane and lets him have some piece of the pizza and enjoys it together with him. And later on in the show, there's like the scene where he just lends him his jacket because Kemono tore or all his clothes got burned off or something. No real scene that, just the next scene, Kawane just suddenly wears Shiki's jacket. And it's just really nice. And it's like, hey, okay, you really see that they have come a long way of becoming friends. And now they're just, brothers, basically. And it's really cool. I liked it a lot. And Shiki also has a cool power set. Like, he can make himself somewhat invisible by applying his own webs to himself in a certain way. Just reflecting off the light and stuff like that. It's really cool. And, of course, he can also stick to walls and ceilings as well. Makes sense. He's a spider boy. And, yeah, that comes in handy in certain cases. And the other character, main character in the show, Akira, has snow powers. It's basically like Yuki Onoko, not Yuki Onna. We've heard that a lot. But he's a dude. Despite his looks, he looks very much like a girl, but he is a dude. He also identifies as one. In fact, he's very angry when someone assumes he's a girl just because of his looks. And yeah, like I said, he's a Yuki Onoko. He's a snow kemono, has snow and ice powers, born in a village where males are only born every 100 years. And he came to Inugami in search of his lost brother. He's physically very weak, likes cute, pretty things, lives on social media, but hates disgusting, scary stuff. So he's not exactly made for the jobs that arrive on Inugami's desk. But he tries his best, especially when he recognizes Kamane as his new teacher and friend. And he has super strong ice powers, but can't control them very well. So he's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to usefulness. Because, he's also very clumsy and stuff like that. But that becomes a plot point in the last mini arc of the season, where it's like he kind of runs away from the agency because he feels useless. And then some shit happens with his family and everything. And Shiki and Kabane find out that they can't communicate as well without Akira being there to moderate, let's say. And they're like, fuck, he was much more useful than we realized. And it's like, all right, we definitely need to get him back. But yeah, it's really nice. And those three are the core of the show. I mean, Inugami is also there, but he's more on the sidelines and he's like working in the background and, you know, doing some trickery on the side. And you don't yet know what, maybe if he's really an all good guy or maybe some bad guys things happening with him as well. But Kabane, Shiki, and Akira are the core of this show. Their friendship, they're basically becoming siblings over time, and it's really nice to see them grow together. And I like their dynamic a lot, and there's a bunch of jokes happening between those three, and they're just a fun set of characters and good main cast, basically. And we also, of course, have some other characters, some also kind of friends, but also some antagonists. A kind of important antagonist is Inari, who's a kitsune kemono, or a fox lady. If you know the meaning behind foxes in Japanese mythology, those are always tricksters. And so is she. She has a very uneasy alliance with Inugami. And she wants Kabane's life stone to mass produce it, as it turns out. So kemono don't have to coexist with humans anymore, because right now kemono needs to do that to feed on humans' energy. She doesn't want to do that anymore. She doesn't want to be like dependent on humans because she can't stand them. So she wants Kabane's life stone and is doing some scheming to get it. And Inugami has to interfere in that and tries to keep her hands off it. Because the life stone is very important. As it later turns out, it's not the only stone with magical properties. There are other stones out there, aside from Kabane's life stone, that have magic imbued in them. There's one introduced in the last arc of the season. It's called the Null Stone. And I think there are more, a bunch more. And their origin and stuff like that is pretty interesting, but I don't want to give it away. And we get filled in on that later in the show. But yeah, Inari has the police under her full control with her powers of seduction and everything, and bewitching stuff, hypnosis and what have you. And she's willing to kill Kabane for the stone. But again, Inugami figured that into his calculations, so there's a bunch of twisting and turning between those two and one-upping each other when it comes to that, you know, getting the hands on her hands on the life stone and shit like that. So that's fun. She has a lackey in the beginning called Kon, who is a very naive, not world-savvy at all character, this little fox girl. And she sees Inari as a mother figure. Kon also has fox ears and a tail, which she can't really hide, apparently. Inari can, but Kon is still very unexperienced. She can throw a lot of fire around, though. And she can transform into other human bodies and create illusions that can actually hurt you. But yeah, she's very naive, just like Kabane in a way. And she definitely needs to be pulled from her master's grasp, because you immediately get the feeling that Inari just treats her like a tool. And she's nothing more to her. While on the other side, Kon sees her like a mother, and that is not healthy at all. So, Kon and Kabane become friends. They're a kind of quasi-couple, but they really don't know anything about love, so that's kind of complicated. There's a cute scene in the park where Kabane is like, I want to spend time with you. And Kon is really happy about that because she felt really alone because she got shunned by Inari for a while. And that scene between them is really, really quite cute. And then, because of things happening, Kabane forgets about a meeting or an appointment and promise he made with Kon to meet up. And the scene where he has to confess to Kon that he forgot about her because of the mission he just had is kind of heartbreaking, because you just see her disappointment that he forgot about her, and she's so crestfallen. She doesn't rage at him. She's just so disappointed and sad, and it's really, really, it really hurts. It really hurts to see her like that, because you feel like she really connected to him at that point. But at least he was honest to her. He's like, he didn't lie to her, which I expected him to do at that point. But he's like, no, that's not the kind of guy he is. He's just like, no, sorry, I forgot about you. There was stuff happening, and Yeah, it's just, it happens. It happened. And it's really sad to see, but they still try to keep up their relationship and everything and improve it. And just them trying to get a grasp on their blossoming love, which definitely is there. And another character gets thrown in the mix later on that also kind of has the hots for Kabane because of certain reasons. And that, of course, leads to kind of a antagonistic love triangle, or, at least a beef between those two female characters, even though Kon doesn't really know why she is angry at that other person, because she doesn't have an understanding of love and everything. But yeah, it's kind of adorable, because both have no clue what love is and how to handle it. And yeah, it's kind of this clumsy, kind of cute, innocent child romance thing that, is pulled off kind of well, and it's not annoying. It's fun. Inari also later gets a new henchboy, Nobimaru, who warns Kabane about her still being after his life stone. He doesn't like her, apparently. I think he figures Inari out immediately, not like Kon. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of play. He's one creepy motherfucker. Like, there's a scene in an episode where he reveals his true face and then kills someone in cold blood, and it's really horrifying. And I'm like, okay, is that just, to show that he is a real Kemono at heart, or is he gonna become a real antagonist later on the show? It's not clear yet where his real allegiances lie. It apparently doesn't really with Inari, but maybe also not with Kabane. It's not clear. So we'll see what happens with him in the coming seasons. There's also Mihai, who is a very fun character who lives in a hidden room at Inugami's agency. He is a vampire that has lived a long time and amassed so much skills and knowledge that he became bored with it. So now he is addicted to MMOs.
As you would be.
Yes, of course. What else would you do? So he's just sitting in a fucking room by himself and just playing fucking online RPGs all the time. He has a very problematic personality and likes to play with or use other people, but he also does something for our characters. Occasionally he gives them gear and everything, but he also at some point recognizes that Shiki, for example, has experienced trauma, and the mission that they are currently on at that point gives Shiki the power to take the first steps of facing said trauma and trying to find out what happened to his parents. And Mihai kind of, let's say, instigates that, like kicks that off, makes that happen so Shiki can have that realization. So, he's not all bad, but he's kind of, let's say, egoistic in very many aspects. And he's like, okay, me first, and occasionally I'll do something for other people. So he's a very fun character, and he's very snarky and everything. So, and his and Inugami's dynamic is also really fun. So I liked him. I can't really say much about the plot, really, because a lot of that would be spoilers when it comes to what happens to our main characters and what they do and how their personal arcs develop and everything. But yeah, most of the show is that. We get a beginning small arc with Kabane, then we get an arc with Shiki, and we get an arc for Akira that relates to their personal character backgrounds. And spliced in between those episodes, those mini arcs are always like some case of the week stories that also further the character skills or emotional abilities in the case of Kabane, or help them come to a realization about themselves, like for Shiki in the case with the fucking disgusting mosquito Kemono ladies who are gross brain suckers. Yeah, it's really gross. It's really fucking gross, that set of episodes. But it's well done and has some nice character moments. So, yeah, good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much the show. It's just like, hey, we got some stories. There's some cases that arrive on Inugami's desk, and it's like, hey, okay, we're gonna investigate this stuff because it seems to be related to Kemono. And then there's also some progression of the plot with Kabane, with Shiki, with Akira, and some stuff in the background with the beef between Inugami and Inari and stuff like that. We get introduced to the world and stuff. So yeah, the first season is kind of like introducing us to all the characters mainly and to the world. That was kind of good. It was a neat compilation of different things. A lot of episodes feel like they just end when the chapter material for 20 minutes has been covered, though. and not necessarily where it makes the most sense in terms of having an emotional high point or having a certain catharsis or a good cliffhanger at the end of the episodes. So you get these situations where the episode might end just right before the satisfying solution to the current arc, and then you get the catharsis at the very beginning of the next episode, which doesn't really feel right. It's a bit jarring sometimes. And I wonder if the writers responsible for the adaptation fucked up, or if the chapter structure of the manga is just so unusual that there was no way around it. I have no idea, I haven't read the manga, but I've not seen that really done in another show like that, where it's like, okay, we have like this big solution, and then we got already the next chapter starts, and then we end the episode, and it's really weird. And it's like, what? Why are you doing this that way? That sounds really... That should have been at the beginning of the next episode. So
it sounds confusing.
It's not really confusing, but it's like, it doesn't feel like that is the logical end point of the episode, because it's not the logical end point to the story. It's like, we end right before that, and then we end it in the first minute of the next episode, or we end this story, this arc, we have the conclusion to this arc, like 2 minutes before the end of the episode, and then they go right to the next and start with that, and not in a way it's like, oh, this is a setup, this is a cliffhanger for the next episode. No, it's just like, no, we're just gonna continue with the story now, and then we stop. And it's like, what? This is, I don't understand this. This is super weird. If you binge this show, it won't matter. You won't, because you're going to watch one episode after another, and it's like basically like you get like this extended commercial break with ED and OP between it, which are, by the way, very nice. But if you watch it on a weekly basis like I did, it's kind of jarring. It's like, why would you end the episode there? That doesn't make a lick of sense. So, yeah, I've never seen this before. It's weird.
It's weird because I know I have brought up the critically acclaimed online MMO Final Fantasy XIV, which has a free trial to level 60 and the full first expansion several times before. But
are we getting any money from Squeenix for this, or what are you doing?
I wish, but my comparison is that the new expansion launches in a few months, and they have said that in 6.0, that's when the current story is ending, and then they're starting a new one in 6.1, which kind of the same vibe in my head, but I don't know if it's like a 1-to-1 where you're saying...
That sounds more like a bridge thing where they're going to do like, okay, we're going to set up the pass into Endwalker or something like that.
Maybe.
But yeah, you're right. It's also kind of like, why do it this way? It's, yeah, I don't know. I've never come across something like that, I think, in a show where it really felt like you always have like these clear cliffhangers, and then, you know, the stuff wraps up very cleanly in the next episode, but also at the end of that next episode. And in this show, it was really weird how they handled it. It didn't really bother me per se. It wasn't like, oh my god, this is taking me completely out of the show, I don't understand. It was just like, huh? What? Okay, just a bit. I was just a bit confused why it was just done in this weird way. But like I said, if you pick up the show now, if you pick up the first season now, you can watch them all in a row, and it probably won't jump out at you as much. Might happen again in the second season. I don't know, but yeah.
Depending on if they could keep the same writing style, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. And maybe it changes because some of the later chapters will be more plot-driven and stuff like that, and it won't be as scattershot in that regard. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I really like the show. I also appreciate that it's not only grimdark, scary stuff. There's a lot of jokes and cute one-off cases. For example, there's one where the gang needs to help a man who has fallen in love with a cat kimono, and the wrap up to that case is really sweet, and it helps Kabane, who hasn't experienced any form of love, like I said, his entire life, to define what that word could mean to him. And you know, it's not only like, okay, these are fluff cases, they're just like filler materials. Like, no, there's actually some character development in these one-off cases, but you also get a nice, self-contained story in this episode with this one case. So I always like when shows do that, when it's like, no, okay, this isn't part of the main plot, but it advances the characters that we have here. And we have good characters, so it's nice to have that. And yeah, makes these one-off cases feel more important and more relevant than they are in the grand scheme of things.
Sometimes a good B plot can really help work things out,
Absolutely, and it does in this show several times. So, yeah, really liked it. I also liked, just a small bit that I want to mention, I liked that the characters' clothing, at least for Shiki and Akira, immediately tells you what their powers are. Shiki wears this spider, or this jacket with a spider emblem on it, and Akira wears light blue clothing and also has light blue hair, and like, okay, spider powers, ice powers. They didn't even have to say anything. It's like, okay, thank you, Shonen. And Kabane, of course, Kabane wears a jumpsuit with a fucking skeleton on it. So, there you have that. But yeah, if you want to check out Kemono Jihen, it's streaming on Funimation in the US, Wakanim in Germany, and a bunch of other places in different countries. Overall, I really liked it. The structure felt a bit weird, though, at certain points, like I said. And yeah, the first season was very much focused on introducing all the characters and their backstories, and now that is mostly wrapped up, we're probably gonna get either more Case of the Week episodes or more actual plot-driven stuff whenever the next season hits. It seems the next arc will be a treasure hunt for the other stones. All right, sure, do that.
Chaos Emeralds.
Yeah. We're gonna have a super Kabane on our hands. If we get more plot-driven stuff, I'll definitely appreciate it, but I also hope that we get more character-focused stories as well, because I really like the character work in this first season, so I don't want that to fall by the wayside. But yeah, if you're in the mood for some ghoulish monster fun with some solid character work and good production values, you should maybe give Kemono Jihen a chance. You might enjoy it. And that is a wrap on the 113th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jack Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
When the beasts bare their fangs,
it takes a lone wolf to dish out justice.